Welcome to the Guided Podcast, where we support you to find the courage to listen and act. I'm Amanda Goolsby, and with me is
Katz.
Let's get started.
Hey, this is us. It's Allie here.
And Amanda.
And we just wanted to give you a little context for what you can expect on the Guided Podcast. And so coming up, first, you're going to hear me tell my story as a solo cast. So you get to see and hear all of the points throughout my life where I was guided and I had an opportunity to choose different paths and what I was listening for, how I chose, which fork in the road did I take, and what happened as a result. And then you're going to hear Amanda's story, and her story is going to be a little bit shorter than mine, mainly because I have 15 years on her. I am 49 and Amanda is
34.
So 15 years between us. And this podcast is really an example of being guided in and of itself. So a lot of what we share with you here is an act of being guided. We aren't mapping out the podcasts and the episodes. We're sharing with you what is most alive in our own lives, so that you can begin to get an imprint of what does it look like when you are listening for guidance and then taking action. And once you have our contextual history of our stories, then it's going to be real time, what's actually happening in our lives now. Now, I do want to give you a little bit of details about how you can get the most out of this podcast. So in the human design system, I am a generator, and Amanda, you are?
I'm a manifesting generator.
Maybe say a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So as a generator and as a manifesting generator, some of the similarities that you and I have together is that our strategy is to respond, which means that as life presents us opportunities, ideas, options, people in our path, it's an opportunity for us to really feel into what is true for us. And our decision-making process, but for both of us, is what's called emotional authority, which means that it's really good for us to sit with opportunities and not make decisions like immediately, but rather ride the wave and feel when we can come to a more, maybe it's not a super high or a super low, but we can find a nice middle ground in our decision-making process and make our decisions from a non-emotional high or low place. And so that's something that's similar with both of us, being a generator, you, and a manifesting generator, me. And I believe that we're both actively learning how to live in our design more and more each and every day. And in this show and the way that we operate in our lives is a testament and an example of that.
Well, and I didn't even know my human design until I was, I think, about 38 years old is when I first learned about human design. And so there were plenty of times before that I was not operating in response as a generator. And I was definitely not wading through an emotional wave to make decisions. And yet I can look at each of the experiences that I had of being guided and still see where the decisions that I made, the choices that I made were leading me to exactly where I needed to go. And so whether you are a manifestor or a manifesting generator, projector, or even a reflector, what you're going to be hearing from us here is going to help you to navigate your own choice-making process, learning to listen for the messages that life is giving you all of the time. Life truly is here to show you the way when you're ready to listen. And then it's up to you to learn how to act. So as generators, for us, we operate in response. And what that means is that you're going to get the most out of this podcast if you engage with us. And the best way that you can engage with us is on our socials, either on Amanda's social or mine, or on the socials for this podcast. We'll be watching them. We'll be waiting to hear from you so that will prompt us to know what's next. What is going to most support you on your journey to live a guided life. So engage with us there on our socials. You'll find the links to all of that in the show notes. Yeah, anything else you want to say before we get started with my story?
Yeah, the impetus of this podcast and where this came from was ultimately from Allie and I sharing stories with each other and realizing that we have both truly committed in our lives to living a guided life and to trusting our intuition, to tuning into higher divine guidance, and to allowing ourselves to be guided throughout life's twists and turns, ups and downs, highs and lows, and not just operating from a place of logic and not just operating from a place of, does this make sense? Can I plug this into a spreadsheet or projections, or know if everything checks out, checks and balances, but to really find this balance between our inner knowing of our heart and the guidance that we're receiving from our bodies and our being, and the logic and decision making of the brilliant brains that we have as well. And so you'll be able to hear through our stories, through our experience, through our teaching, through the wisdom that we've gained, how for you and your own journey that you can start to or lean into more the balance of receiving guidance and also making logical decisions along the path.
Well, and that living through intuition and living connected with my heart and soul was one of the biggest challenges for me along the way, because I am, without question, a left brain logical. And if you are also a left brain logical and you have any challenge moving into your heart, moving into your intuition, you're really going to love what you hear here, because it is a both and. It's not at all about not following your logic. It's about, how do you put your logic, how do you put your mind in service to your heart? Mm-hmm. And that's been a big part of my journey, is connecting my mind and my heart so they would trust each other, because for years there was deep inner conflict. My mind and heart didn't trust each other, weren't willing to surrender to each other and be in their right roles. And I'll share more about that in my solo story when we come back. So you're going to hear this is not a linear path. And as you are listening to these podcasts, my invitation to you is to listen through multiple senses, not just listen through your mind, but tap into your heart as well. And know that with each episode that you choose to listen to, you're going to receive something that is going to have you say, oh, I didn't think of thinking it that way. I didn't know I could think about it that way. And that will support you to listen more closely to what life is trying to tell you. Anything else you want to add before we go today?
We look forward to being on this journey with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And like Allie said, please connect with us on our socials listed here in the show notes, and stay in communication. Something really inspires you, lands for you, has an effect on your life. Send us a message so that we can know what to create more of and how to share our stories. We're going to do our best to just be real, raw, honest, and vulnerable about what is happening in our life path. So thank you for listening today, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
If you enjoy the Guided Podcast, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to come back next week. Until then, this is Allie Katz and
Amanda Goolsby.
And remember, life knows.